One summer moment can change a child's life. Through Toys for Tots Give and Go initiative, your support provides books, games, toys, and outdoor adventures that spark curiosity, creativity, and a love of nature. Whether it's fishing, learning a new sport, reading under a tree, or playing with friends, these moments build confidence and lifelong memories. For too many children, those moments never come. You can help change that this summer. Visit toysfortots.org. Toys for Tots, delivering hope beyond the holidays.
This is going to be an extremely busy month. I have to watch 104 soccer games, follow the pregame, the postgame, yell useless opinions at the TV. It's a lot. So I knew that when it comes to screening for colon cancer, the choice was clear. The Cologuard Plus test. It can be used at home and can only take 15 minutes, so I can do it during halftime and not miss any action. If you are 45 or older and at average risk, ask your healthcare provider about screening for colon cancer with the Cologuard test. You can also request a prescription at Cologuard.com.
The sound of praise for your Sunday morning.
The only one who could ever teach me.
Introducing Reverend A.R. Bernard of the Christian Cultural Center.
Was the son of a preacher man.
And Rabbi Joseph Potasnik of Religion on the Line.
The only one who could ever teach me.
Now, here's the Rev and the Rabbi, where faith matters.
Good morning, I'm Rabbi Joseph Potasnik.
And I'm Reverend A.R. Bernard.
Rev, for those who think this heat is brutal, if you don't go to heaven, wait till you see what's down there.
I mean, heard there's someplace hotter.
Yeah. It is. I mean, that's why I'm glad I went to the top of the Empire State Building with that couple getting married, because
you know,
it was
that's
nice and
the
cool.
only place to cool off.
Yeah.
And you know, if you're going to have a lovely damsel with you and propose to her, you know, yeah.
I think they both are in serious need of premarital counseling.
Premarital.
Some kind of psychiatric, intervention. Wow.
Well, they've done this around the world, so it's not like it's their first time doing a stunt like this.
All the more reason they need psychiatric.
So I guess,
it's
they wanted to start their engagement with a bang, with something special.
Imagine if they ask you to do the wedding. How do you charge? What's the fee? Is it like $10 per step of the Empire State Building? How do you rate your fee?
No, you would have to have it at Madison Square Garden, like Taylor Swift had her wedding at Madison Square Garden. Come on.
All right. So
you
this
have
is
to rent the garden.
July 4th weekend. To me, a sacred holiday, therefore a sacred weekend. And who better to discuss that with us than Jake Novak, who hosts Freedom 250, Decisions That Made America. And as I mentioned to you before we went on the air, I've been privileged to know Jake's father, great Rabbi David Novak. And you could see where it has gone from generation to generation. Jake is highly respected here at the station. Also was on early in the morning, both Saturday and Sunday. And you always learn. When you talk to Jake, you always learn something. So we felt, let's have him as a guest. Jake, good morning.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you for that great introduction. I hope I can live up to it. Thank you.
You better. Make me look good, Jake. Come on.
I will.
By the way, being a preacher's kid, and Rev has, a son who's a preacher. My son wanted nothing to do with being a preacher. There's an expectation, isn't there, when your son Jamal gets up to preach, to lead, you, Jake, I mean, if you're the son of a rabbi, son of a pastor, there's pressure. Am I right?
Yeah, I mean, I mostly appreciated it. I liked schmoozing with people. I mean, it's one of the reasons why radio has been such a great thing for me, because I do like talking with people. And when you're the rabbi's son, you don't need to introduce yourself. You can sort of just slide in there. And it also made me comfortable with people of all ages. People attending services regularly, I think, in every religion tend to be a little older. So, I was very comfortable speaking with elderly people, with people middle-aged, and obviously with my fellow kids. And that helped. That helped a lot. I definitely considered, when I was in high school, going into the rabbinate myself. But I have some other more general interests, and I just felt like it wasn't exactly the right thing for me when I started to finish up high school. But I continued my studying and continued yeshiva learning and things like that, or on my own. So I kind of got the best of a number of worlds.
Rev, what about your son? When did he want to be a pastor?
You know what? We saw it inside him, just his mannerisms, his interaction with people, his curiosity about the faith. We saw when he was 13 years old, but we made sure we never imposed it on him, never told him that this was his calling or responsibility. And when he was 20 years old, he came and he said, "Dad, you know what? I believe that God's called me to this." I said, "You sure?" He said, I'm sure. What's the next steps?" And then, we took him through a process. And it was interesting. Well, I have a question for Jake, though. There's always the pressure of comparison between you and your dad. Did you have to face that with the congregation?
I'm really glad you asked that, because in the last couple of years, I've come to the realization that having, my father isn't just a clergyman, as Rabbi Potasnik alluded to. He's very, 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 very major author. He's written 20 to 25 books. He's a theologian. He has a PhD in philosophy from Georgetown. He was a student of a great Catholic theologian, Louis Dupre. And actually, this very much takes the pressure off me, if you can follow my logic. I don't think anyone could expect somebody to live up to that exactly. It'd be too hard for two people to have that same specific kind of erudition. So for me, it's freed me up to be a little bit more varied in my interests. I show that as much as I can on the radio shows, but in other parts of my work as well. I do a lot of work in history. I do a lot of work in economics and business and financial news, a lot of political analysis. I was political analysis for a long time. I worked as a diplomat. So it's given me that freedom. I actually don't feel like there's any pressure to live up to that, because who could? I mean, to me, it doesn't really, it's such a specialized level of expertise that my father has. To sum it up for a more layman's audience, he's one of the greatest experts in the Talmud in the entire world, and also one of the greatest experts in Greek philosophy, which has led to his understanding of the differences, but also the similarities between Aristotle's work and also the work of the early rabbis. So there can't be too many people like that in a century that have come around, even if they are in the same family. Yeah. So I've actually taken it as a great liberation, frankly, and not some kind of hard-pressed expectations.
Yeah, it's interesting.
And that's not common. Yeah. I have to say this. That is not common. My son and I, we have a great relationship and have gone through this, transition together, holding the baton together. And I continue to support him. But we meet up with quite a few individuals, especially sons who are in transition, and they feel pressured. They don't feel the freedom. They don't have the perspective that you have. My son has a similar perspective to you, and he's comfortable finding his own path and in his own skin. But it's not common, Jake. It really isn't.
Yeah. You know what it is? I'm listening to the two of you, and I've been privileged to know, Rev, your son Jamal, Pastor Jamal. And when you hear kids who are proud of their parents, it is so heartening, because you expect parents to be proud of their kids. But when you also hear it reciprocated, it's a special moment. So I commend both of you. My son, we have a great relationship. The only pressure he said he had was he couldn't come late for services. Because he said, how's it going to look if the rabbi's kid comes in late and we expect everybody else to come on time? So, but, I have a friend who's a pediatrician. He also says to parents, forget the genius bit. You just want a good, healthy kid. And I think if you're blessed with that, everything else is an enhancement, but at least good, healthy kid, you're doing very well.
And you don't want to have to sacrifice your relationship for a calling that is equally on your offspring, your son, in my case, in Jake's case. You want to make sure that you have a great relationship with each other and it doesn't stress you. We're in a season where there's a lot of transition taking place, Jake. Rabbis that I talk to, ministers, clergy that I talk to, they are in Rabbi Potasnik's age range, not mine, and
Yeah.
they're moving on.
Not that old yet.
And they're concerned about legacy.
Yeah.
And it's an amazing opportunity when you have a son, in some cases a daughter, who can step into that role. So congratulations, man.
Yeah.
Well, thank you. And I think there's a lot of issues. I also spent many years as an editorial columnist, and I used to joke, well, I'm not a rabbi, but I write a sermon every day, and that is the style. I did find the ways to imitate a certain style. Now, my father's books are pretty heavy. They're very heavy. They're very heavy philosophical. But his public speaking is very accessible to all people with a moderate education or better. And he taught me a lot of things. And one of them was brevity. I mean, his sermons were, despite the fact that he never typed up his sermons, he had a small note card with bullet points, very small note card that he would have. And his sermons were always 18 minutes on the dot, which is really, that's about as long as you should go. Sorry, Rabbi, if you go.
No, I subscribe. And by the way, over the years, nobody ever complained that a sermon was too short. So
right, that's good. That's right. No one's ever going to do that.
Yeah.
Well, that's
also,
exactly the TED Talk.
Yeah, the style as well. Just the starting with a broader story. I mean, I remember as a young man, really a child, really being jealous of my dad's joke telling abilities. When you're, and I picked up pretty quickly, but I really wanted to be that way, and I wanted to tell stories that way. And so that I really wanted to do and wanted to copy. Yeah.
We've got to go to a break. Yeah.
But this has been fascinating. We want to talk about America 250 and obviously, the contributions of different groups and some of the challenges that groups had to face over the years. So
we'll be back with more of the Rev and the Rabbi right here on your Sunday morning, right here, Red Apple Radio Networks.
Reverend A.R. Bernard, Rabbi Joseph Potasnik, where faith matters. The Rev and the Rabbi.
Want to elevate your travel experience? Here's how. With a Delta SkyMiles Reserve American Express card, you can relax before your flight in the Delta Sky Club with up to 15 visits per medallion year. And now through July 15th, 2026, you can earn up to 125,000 bonus miles, so you're closer to your next adventure. The Delta SkyMiles Reserve card. Check out the new design at www.delta.com/Spotify. Minimum spending requirements and terms apply.
El martes 7 de julio, la espera termina. Operación Triunfo llega a Telemundo. Miles respondieron al llamado.
Este es mi destino.
Pero solo unos pocos llegarán a la Gala Cero.
Aquí todo el mundo está ready. Aquí hay nivel.
¿Quiénes serán los elegidos?
Me voy a ganar mi lugar en la Gala Cero.
Descúbrelo en el gran estreno de Operación Triunfo Estados Unidos. Martes 7 de julio por Telemundo y Peacock.
33 days, 33 episodes, no off switch. From the goals and the glory to the politics and the problems of the World Cup. If you want soccer analysis from a podcast that's been overanalyzing the game for more than 20 years, then this is it. Join me, Max Rushton, and our expert team of soccer journalists every day of the tournament. Can England end 60 years of hurt, or will this be another year of falling just short? Probably. World Cup Daily, listen wherever you get your podcasts or watch full episodes on YouTube.
Hey, I like your new RAV4.
Thanks, yours too.
What does RAV stand for anyway?
To me, it's the Remarkably Advanced Vehicle.
Really? To me, it's the Runway Approved Vehicle for its amazing style.
What about Remarkably Adaptable Vehicle because of its versatile cargo space?
Or Really Admired Vehicle?
Oh, or Really Awesome Vehicle.
It really is the Recreational Activity Vehicle. The stylish 2026 Toyota RAV4 Limited. What's your RAV4?
Where faith matters. The Rev and the Rabbi.
Welcome back. I'm Rabbi Joseph Potasnik.
And I'm Reverend A.R. Bernard.
And we're talking about the children of clergy. We're going to get into a whole discussion of America 250. But one of the things I think we all agree upon is we need to give kids space where they can make their own decisions. We can equip them with all kinds of tools, but one of the tools has to be independent thinking. And sometimes kids feel pressured like I have to follow in the footsteps of my dad or mom. That's what they want me to do. I mean, my mom wanted me to be a doctor, and I've heard that many, many times. I think I told you, Rev, she would call me on Wednesdays when I was in the office, because Wednesdays historically was a day off for doctors. And she said, you see, if you had listened to me, you wouldn't be sitting in your office today. But anyway, I'm privileged to have great parents. All right.
You'd be home with her.
Yeah.
So
All right.
go ahead.
Let's talk about America 250. Jake, I think of a story you may have heard, and with your dad you probably did hear, of an artist who was going to paint a portrait of an individual, and he looked at him, he says, you know, you have a number of warts on your face. And the person said, sir, remember one thing, I may have some warts, but I have a face. And I think when you look back, you know, at the history of the country, of course there are warts, but one should not in any way close their eyes to the beauty of this country and the fact that we did have opportunities we spoke about earlier. It is a great country for so many. Jake, talk about it.
Well, you know, the first thing I think of when I think about the history of the Jews in America, Jewish people in America, and how really wonderful it's been in so many ways, is a little bit of regret. You know, the European rabbis and leaders of communities for many generations trash-talked the United States. They called it a treifa Medina in Yiddish, you know, an unkosher country, and told them that they would go there, they would lose all their religion, and they would lose their traditions. And, you know, I got to wonder how many thousands of Jews would have survived the pogroms and then eventually the Holocaust had they not listened to that and come to the United States. And yes, there is a secularizing pressure in this country, and there were many Jews who assimilated and eventually left Judaism. But there's also thriving religious life here in this country to the level, and yeshivas and very religious life as well. So really, to blame a country for that is really a cop-out. This is a personal choice. And, you know, and by the way, this dovetails nicely into what we were just talking about with giving children space. You know, there's a very strong Jewish notion of what we say in Hebrew, bechira chofshit, free choice. And by the way, this is a huge debate right now in society, whether or not there really is free will for human beings. Right. In other words, not that there's predestination. We're not Calvinists, but the idea that there's really that humankind and it does not truly have free choice. And I think that the rabbis all along understood that there may not be any way to prove that one way or the other. But God help us, no pun intended, if we don't believe we have free choice. Society breaks down when you basically tell everyone, well, no one has any responsibility. What responsibility do I have if I have no free choice? The answer is none. And a society that shirks responsibility isn't going to last.
Yeah.
So, by the way, you know, I think that, yeah, go ahead.
No, Rev, I listened to Jake before, and he said, I decided, you know, I was going to be a rabbi, and I'm listening to him speak. I was like, wait a minute, there's another sermon, right? So he's a rabbi.
Well, look, we go back and
but
forth.
He's a rabbi.
Yeah, well, he's right. Theologically, we debate the issue, do we really have free choice, considering all of the influences that shape the choices that we make. I do think we do have a degree of moral freedom when it comes to making moral choices. But again, it's how it's informed. You know, Jake, I'm going to take a turn because for me, and I came from another country to America and, you know, got my citizenship and established because I love this country. I love what it's, you know, what it stands for. But I also understand as a person of color, you know, that American history is an exercise in cognitive dissonance. You know, America defines itself by extraordinary ideals. You guys know all men are created equal, liberty and justice for all, government by the consent of the governed, you know, inherent dignity and rights of every person. And yet the experience, the actions don't line up, haven't lined up, have had to be fought for by those who have been marginalized or left out of this equation. How do you respond to that cognitive dissonance?
Well, it's you know, you said it out at the beginning. We created these ideals. Now, without the creation of the ideals, I don't think there would have been any success for anyone. And yes, they have not been lived up to enough because anything other than 100% compliance wouldn't be enough. We want to be as good as we can possibly be all the time. And whether we're talking about things like slavery or second-class citizenship for people or interning Japanese Americans in camps during World War II, I mean, I can go through all the negatives. But thank goodness we had on paper And by the way, spoiler alert, to me, the number one decision that made America was the writing of the Constitution, because everything else was pretty extraordinary, but not as extraordinary as that. And we created a document where basically we said to ourselves, we have to live up to this. And it may or may not be true that all the framers of the Constitution realized how far we were at the time of the ratification of the Constitution in 1789, how far we were from actually living up to that. But that doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. They created these ideals. They knew what they had they put it on paper in that way. They weren't ambiguous with it. And there's really no other country that does that. And that is really what sets us apart. Just the failure rate, it's kind of like saying, well, this team isn't successful because they didn't win the championship every year. But if you have a team that really strives to do that every year while others don't, then what's the problem? To me, it shouldn't even be a question that this is a great society. And it's an idea in addition to a country with borders. I think it's both. I know there's a debate between people who say it's an idea versus a terrestrial country. I think it's actually both.
And we would have seen the progress, the changes. I mean, civil rights, the whole moral imperative of the civil rights movement was holding America accountable to its ideals. So these changes that have progressed throughout its history is because of those high ideals and the opportunity to hold America accountable. You're right. I mean, what other nation do we see something like that with such an incredible document? Rabbi?
It's a story, Moses not entering into the promised land. He had a vision of it, but he never entered it. And commentators, Jake, you probably know, commentators look at that and say, wait a minute, he did so much. Why wasn't he given that pass, that entry pass? And the answer given by some is because no one ever reaches the promised land. You have to have aspirations in life. You want to accomplish, but you never accomplish all of them. And I think the story of America is a story, of courage, of commitment, but there was always more that could have been done. And that, to me, defines greatness. When you're not satisfied with status quo, you're always seeking more. When you talk about civil rights, Rev, I keep thinking of that iconic picture of Martin Luther King, right, and Abraham Joshua Heschel walking together, and the alliance that existed between Jews and African Americans, who said, we can't fully be free unless you're free. And that was, to me, a glorious moment in America, but it came at a cost. So I think, we have to always fight for more, but don't overlook all that's been done as well. We're going to take a break.
And whenever there's a great conversation, this is what happened, Jake. We've got to go to a break again. Stay tuned for more of the Rev and the Rabbi right here on Red Apple Radio Networks. We'll be right back.
This episode is brought to you by Starbucks.
That is fire. Whoa, that's good. This might be the drink of the summer. Okay, I like this one too. I'm rocking with it. Okay.
Try it for yourself. Starbucks Refreshers Concentrates are coming home. Find them in the coffee aisle and make it yours.
When it's time to scale your business, it's time for Shopify. Get everything you need to grow the way you want. Like, all the way. Stack more sales with the best converting checkout on the planet. Track your cha-chings from every channel, right in one spot. And turn real-time reporting into big-time opportunities. Take your business to a whole new level. Switch to Shopify. Start your free trial today.
Hey parents, how do you make smarter choices for your kids' college today? That's where Sally can help. With Sally, you can find scholarships, funding options, tools, and guidance all in one place. And if you need a loan, Sally has options for different families and different situations. College is only worth it if you do it right. So don't just help your kid go. Help them go smarter. Sally.com/GoParents.
Choice Hotels get you more of what you value. Here's a little tune to help you remember. Same drive, different day. Don't you wish you were getting away? Pack your bags and come on through. Texas, Ohio, Alaska, we're up there too. Comfort Inn, it's calling your name. Save on the stay. Oh, and free waffles are yours to claim. Well, I hope you like my little song. Book direct at choicehotels.com.
Reverend A.R. Bernard, Rabbi Joseph Potasnik, the Rev and the Rabbi.
Welcome back. I'm Rabbi Joseph Potasnik.
And I'm Reverend A.R. Bernard.
We're talking with Jake Novak, who hosts a program. It's entitled Freedom 250, Decisions That Made America. Jake, it's an honor to have you here. Like I say, you learn. And what I said when we went on break is your dad's writings didn't just appear in Jewish texts and Jewish sources, but also in non-Jewish sources. And I would see him, his writing, and I read it, and I say, my God, he really is able to exist in two worlds. So talk about, the relationship, Jew, non-Jew.
Yeah, very often interdenominational or interfaith operations are very much on the ridiculously surface level, really almost like kumbaya kind of stuff, and it just doesn't have any meaning. That's no good for somebody like my dad, the philosopher, the PhD, the guy who writes books that are hard to get through. And he put together something in the year 2000, so it's been more than 25 years now, called Dabru Emet, which in Hebrew means true words. And it was a statement that said that Christian denominations, almost all of them, especially since the end of World War II, but many even before then, had come a long way into understanding Judaism better, wanting to have a better partnership with Jews, and it was past time for traditional Jews especially, not just people who are Jews in it, but people who are traditional Jews, Orthodox Jews, traditional Jews, to meet them more than halfway. Not for singing and dancing together, but for discussing the similar challenges that we face. How many times have we said that the attacks on Jews are just a preview of attacks on Christians? But not only negative things, also positive things that we work together to achieve. Schools and the right for private schools and things like that can be very positive, and on down the line. And this is something that, for me, it's a challenge. There were a lot of people who push back, mostly from the very Orthodox community, who sometimes don't understand the great similarities and don't understand that there can be great dialogue between Jews and Christians without proselytizing. For Jews, and one of the reasons why it's very successful for us here, Reverend, you talked about something about how people coming to America because they wanted to keep America, hold it up to its own ideals. And I think that many Jews did that for sure. But, it's expressly forbidden for Jews to proselytize. We are not allowed to go to non-Jews and try to get them to convert. We're just not allowed to do that. And that has led to tremendous success for Jews going from country to country. We don't come here with an agenda of, hey, we got to change these people. But we hope that we can be an example when we're at our best. And I think that is something that's helped Jews all over. I wrote an article for White Rose magazine last year that expressly talked about the Jewish rule of something called Dina de Malchuta Dina, which means that when we go to a foreign country, we must follow their rules and uphold them as much as our own Jewish law, which I think is not only the reason for Jewish survival, but the reason for Jewish intellectual and financial success. If you have to accept all the laws and customs and understand them of a foreign country, then you will be more open. And the more open a society is, the more successful it's going to be. And the great example of that being China. Before the building of the Great Wall of China, it was the most advanced culture by far worldwide. But a few hundred years after the building of the wall, it became the most backward civilization in the world. So these are the kinds of things. That's the reason. It's not in our DNA. There's nothing special about our blood or our genes. It's just the rules that we follow that have led to this kind of great success, especially in America.
Well said. Well said. So America has been called the American experiment. And many people hear that and they don't know if it's an experiment with different kinds of people coming together, classes of people, races, religions, etc. But it had specific meaning to the founders, correct? When they use American experiment, it was an experiment in self-government. Speak to that, Jake.
Yeah, well, it had a lot to do with the first part, that there would be no official religion in the United States. It would be a country based on very much Christian ideals, and you can say Judeo-Christian, and that's fine too, but not without any imposed balkanization of the country. The United States is definitely the most successful pluralistic society in the history of the world. I would argue that Israel is very successful as well. But the United States has had a much longer track record, so I'm going to give the gold medal to the United States on that. And every effort to balkanize this country, whether it was in things like Jim Crow or even now with certain things like districting and the creation of really trying to do blue and red state stuff, every one of these attempts to balkanize this country has failed. And I hope that that continues to be true. And people don't understand that in this country, we're so used to calling it a swing vote. In other countries, there's no such thing. The elections are decided by who shows up. There's never any crossover. There are no free agents. I like a country that has more free agents than not. I often tell my Jewish friends, you know why billionaires are so successful in this country? Not just because their business acumen, but because that carries over to a lot of the other things they do. Billionaires in this country are very split between Democrats and Republicans. Don't let anyone from either party tell you otherwise.
Well, the DSA may disagree with that.
Yeah, well, they're wrong. They're wrong. It's a tremendous split right down the middle. And, for example, this new Supreme Court decision banning race as criteria to congressional districts, I believe will be incredibly liberating for Black Americans. Millions and millions of Black Americans are about to become swing voters in these new districts. And boy, when you're a swing voter, life is good. Life is good for you. And I hope that happens very fast.
So Jake,
as
you
long
say
as America stays divided, as long as the majority population stays divided.
There'll always be some division.
But Jake,
level
let me ask you,
voting.
talk about the voting and, the privilege of voting. And I've often said it's a religious responsibility. But yet, look at the numbers. Look at the recent elections where a minority elected, people we consider, I'll call them monsters to plagiarize someone else. But what goes on here? You have the right, you take it for granted. You don't think your vote matters after all we've said about voting and the privilege of being here?
Well, notice which districts these things happen in, because they don't happen in affluent districts. This doesn't happen in districts where there is where English is a first language for a predominant number of people. There's also another problem, and I talk about this a lot, and I talked about it with our owner-operator, John Katsimatidis, as well. Having primaries, especially in one-party states where the primary is everything, having primaries on a random Tuesday in the summer is a form of voter suppression, and that's the way it was meant to be. The only people who are guaranteed to come out and vote on a random Tuesday in the middle of the summer are the most fringe voters and municipal union members who not only get the day off to vote, but are paid extra to go out and get out the vote. This is a form of voter suppression on normal Americans, working Americans at all income levels, whether you're a big executive or washing dishes, it doesn't matter. It's a form of voter suppression. It's another reason why we should seriously consider having our elections on weekend days, and do it that way. And I have no problem with in-person voting. That's fine with me. A week or so before the election, that's good too. But we need to do a much better job of this. And you're right. Ultimately, though, the responsibility is on the voter. I'm not trying to get them off the hook. But we need to do a better job also in our schools, too. The schools need to be given much more of a – but the problem is it doesn't seem like we're able to get our teachers in our schools to teach civics without being incredibly biased towards one party or the other. I wish we could have one without the other there, but apparently that's too much to ask.
But Jake, let me ask you a question, because our system is designed for an educated electorate, right? Do we have an educated electorate today voting, or do we have those who have succumbed to rhetoric and are occupying ideological bubbles? Do we have an educated electorate?
Well, that's half the problem. The ideological bubble is half the problem, but I would submit to you that even graduates of some of our best colleges, if I asked them some of the basic questions of American civics, they would not get them right. I think it's also the balkanization of the country, the ideological fringe stuff that's going on that has been incredibly multiplied and amplified by social media. Social media acts like a microphone to everything, both positive and negative, but it does tend to, someone is 9 times more likely to say something negative on social media than positive. So when I do get a positive comment, I really go out of my way to acknowledge it, because it's harder. It's a harder mental process to write something nice about somebody or something on social media. So social media is making it worse. But I think it's a combination, but it's still, at the end of the day, and I'll tell you something else. So there's another, it's not just apathy. I was hopping mad as a high school senior when my AP government class was doing a review for the AP government test. And so, of course, we looked at previous tests. And there was a multiple choice question about asking why voter numbers, voter participation had fallen in this country quite precipitously. And as a class, we were discussing every question. As a class, we narrowed it down to two options. One was apathy, and the other was voter alienation. And the correct answer, according to the answer key, was apathy. And I remember being hopping mad about that. I said, I don't know who wrote this test. But I grew up for a lot of my childhood in Norfolk, Virginia, among a lot of retired Navy, Vietnam veterans, et cetera, et cetera. And I can tell you that alienation is a much bigger factor than people just not caring. And that's another problem. So even the people in the education field, Rabbi and Reverend, are, I think, misunderstand some of the problems.
All right, we're going to take a break.
We've got more to talk about right here on the Rev and the Rabbi. Stay tuned.
Reverend A.R. Bernard, Rabbi Joseph Potasnik, the Rev and the Rabbi.
The 2-week pay period, invented in 1938 and still making us wait until daily pay, where everyone can access their money on demand. This is the future of pay. Learn more at dailypay.com. Transfer fee may apply.
Whether it's a movie night or just midday, Skinny Pop is a salty snack that keeps on giving. Made with just 3 simple ingredients for an irresistibly delicious taste and a large serving size that lasts. Deliciously popped, perfectly salted. Skinny Pop, popular for a reason. Shop Skinny Pop now.
If data management is slowing down your business, you need the Intuit ERP. If one entity is here, and one here, and one here, and one here, you need the Intuit ERP. If scaling your business feels like starting over, you need the Intuit ERP. Intuit Enterprise Suite is the AI-native ERP solution that consolidates, migrates, and automates, all in one place. Learn more at intuit.com/ERP.
Suffering from dry, tired, irritated eyes? Don't let dry eyes win. Use Sustain Pro. It hydrates, restores, and protects dry eyes for up to 12 hours. Sustain Pro. Triple action dry eye relief.
Where faith matters. The Rev and the Rabbi.
Welcome back. I'm Rabbi Joseph Potasnik.
And I'm Reverend A.R. Bernard.
Joined by Jake Novak, who has a program on WABC entitled Freedom 250, Decisions That Made America. And he's also heard over the weekends here at WABC. So tune in, listen to him, or go to WABCradio.com and listen to his broadcast. Jake, we're talking, about the blessings of America. And I have to tell you, just before the program began, I was speaking with Eric Levine, who hosts a program before ours goes on with his co-host. I said, I never thought we'd see a day when we see this level of anti-Semitism in our country, and particularly in our city. The hate attacks. It's not just about rhetoric. It's the attacks on Jews who are blamed for everything that is wrong, and, that has echoes in the past of this in this country. What do you think? To what do you attribute it?
Well, I may shock you by saying I have never believed, and I continue not to believe, that anti-Semitism has anything to do with the Jews. Now, let me explain. Obviously, anti-Semitism, I'm not talking about victimization of Jews. Obviously, that has something to do with them. But anti-Semitism has nothing to do with what Jews do or don't do, and anti-Semitism's ultimate goal is not about the Jews. It never is. Anti-Semitism is always born out of a larger pushback on civilization itself. It goes back to even before there were Jews. It goes back to the Cain and Abel situation. Cain doesn't kill Abel out of jealousy. That's a total misconception. There's a difference between jealousy and resentment. Cain has no interest in communing with God. Cain has no jealousy of that. He's just angry that basically Abel has set up a civilized rules, basically morality. Basically, here's what you have to do. And he doesn't want to do any of that. And so he kills them in the hopes of erasing all of that. To destroy the Jews is a great gateway drug for the destruction of civilization. Because sadly, if you kill the Jews and attack us, you will get the least pushback. This is true for thousands of years. You'll get some pushback, but you'll get very little. and you condition society to a place where murder and rape and vandalism and that kind of stuff is okay or more okay. And then when they move on to everything else, it becomes easier. So I go much further than it starts with the Saturday people and then it goes to the Sunday people. Yeah, it starts with the Saturday people and then it goes to every people. It's got nothing to do with what Jews or Christians do. It is a war against civilization. Now, the Jews, as proudly Jewish as I am, I'm not going to come on here and say that the Jews are a morally better people and we're the greatest people in the world. I will say, though, we brought this idea of meritocracy to the world, for better or for worse, and our own compliance with it. We brought it. And getting at us is a way of attacking that. So some people will say that's also a way of attacking God, and I'm okay with that, but I think it's a little bit more specific. I talk about the attacking of the whole idea of meritocracy. That is what the Bible and the Torah really specifically says. It's a radical idea at the time. I still think it's radical for a lot of societies. The idea that you will be judged not by your skin color, not by your birth order, not by your gender. You're going to be judged by your good deeds and your bad deeds. That's it. And that makes us a target, but again, not because we are what we do or don't do, but because it's an attack on the whole idea of society, rules, and a meritocratic ideal. And that, to me, is what anti-Semitism is always about.
So what's an effective strategy?
Israel do is a waste of time. Strategy is very simple. The strategy is 3 words: law and order. Now, I am all in favor of Holocaust education and teaching people the stories of the Black experience in this country and all that kind of stuff. That I'm in favor for because I love history and I want people to be informed. But I think we're fooling ourselves if we think there's going to be one instance less of anti-Semitism and one instance less of anti-Black bigotry from any of those things. If you grow up in a society where the powers that be in society say, no matter who the victim is and no matter who the perpetrator is, these are the very strict punishments for those who break these rules. If you vandalize a synagogue, church, building, or post office, the punishment is the same, and it's big. If you punch someone in the street, no matter how upset you are with news in Israel, or whether it's a Jew or Christian who did it or is the victim, this is the severe punishment everyone's getting. There will be no racial, gender, or any other criteria other than whether this person is guilty or not, and there will be no other considerations. That's the answer. So law and order. And that's why, Rabbi and Reverend, I knew, quote unquote, anti-Semitism would go on the rise when we got rid of the bail situation here in the city, when we started having people running for office and winning for office to let people out of jail and defund the police. I knew that anti-Semitism would follow quickly because any society that takes away meritocracy or even the ideal of it will come for the Jews soon enough, and they always do.
Okay, so let me factor in human nature here, because in a true meritocracy, Jake, you know, and Rabbi, you know, the best qualified person gets a job. Promotions are earned through performance. Academic success reflects learning and achievement. Leadership is based on competence rather than privilege, right? Every individual has a fair opportunity to compete. Is that reality?
No, I would disagree with that, with those parameters, very respectfully, because you're focusing on ability. And meritocracy, as we say in Hebrew, focuses on midot, on your actions. So to me, I know a lot of people who are freaking brilliant, who don't do anything with it. And I know a lot of people who I don't think are as intellectually capable, and yet they do more. And I agree with you. It's very problematic if we want to create a society where we say, well, the most capable should be the most rewarded. No. The person who has done the most should be the one who is rewarded the most. And that is a huge difference, And I think this goes back. I mean, to me, the most important Bible narrative for our time since the rise of communism has been the Bible narrative of Cain and Abel, which predates Judaism and Christianity and all of that. Because you get the feeling that Cain is one of those guys saying, I could have done better. I could have done that, but I didn't want to. This guy makes me like, I'm really the smarter one, and he'll get his. And I think that's a big part of society right now, that resentment and that kind of thing.
So to many of us who are despondent about what we see happening in this city, what is your answer to that? It's not about the Jews, you know, it's about law and order, it's about merit.
Wait. I got to jump in here because in the conversation, Jake, you referred to the bail system. So
Yes.
systems do matter if those systems are not functioning to support this meritocracy that you're talking about, correct?
Well, yes and no. I mean, to me, the most frightening thing in our narrative in America that's happened in the last 20 years is there's two statistics out there. The first statistic is that, for example, African American men are 5 times more likely to be arrested and to be jailed than white men. To me, that's terrible. But the much more frightening statistic is this one, that African American men and women are 12 times more likely to be the victims of a crime. And I have to tell you, I'm not happy with a society that's more worried about column A than column B.
Mm-hmm.
And I moved to New York in 1981. And I moved to Far Rockaway, Queens, an incredible community. It was a huge culture shock for a Southern boy like myself. And what made it easier was my block was amazing. It was the most eclectic block. It was, old, young, white, black. It was amazing.
Mm-hmm.
And I can tell you, every single member on that block was focused on one thing all the time, which was crime. I mean, everybody looked out for each other. It was a bipartisan issue. Nobody was interested in any changes in any leniency or anything else like that. It was, and for all the credit that I give Mayor Giuliani and Bill Bratton and all those people, they all deserve some credit. But it was the people of New York. Just by the way, same thing with slavery. The people before the politicians. Always, always. Every great change in this country comes from the grassroots level. Every time. It was the people of the city who turned around the city on crime, and it was people like my neighbors in Far Rockaway who did. And I want to change. I'm not saying that, again, the court system was not fair to a lot of people and continues to not be fair to a lot of people. But if we are going to focus on, if we're not going to focus on the victims of the crime and how we fix that situation before we worry about, oh my God, we may have been too hard on this person. Listen, if you're too hard on an innocent person, that's the worst of them all. But if you're worried about being too hard on guilty people before you're worried about making the streets safe for all people, your priorities are mixed up. And I think our priorities got mixed up. And I knew, Reverend and Rabbi, I knew 100% when this trend started in New York that things would deteriorate for the Jews very quickly. And I was right about that, sadly.
Very interesting. We don't have the time to get into the fact that African-American men have the highest wrongful convictions. And that is a problem that we have to address. But it's all within the systems itself. So there's the individual that has to be transformed and dealt with, but there's also the systemic issues that create the cycles. This has been a great conversation. Rabbi, when are we going to have him back?
Tomorrow. So I think of my father, and I mentioned this to the Rev. He came to this country with my mom, and they were naturalized citizens. And every time he would go to vote, he'd carry his, citizenship paper with him. And I just, I wish we could kind of restore that spirit of being so proud that you take voting seriously, you take merit seriously. All the things you spoke of, Jake, they have to be priorities for us. We can't take them for granted. We can't turn our backs. We have responsibility. To me, freedom, as you know, Passover talks about freedom. It's followed by Shavuot, Pentecost, which talks about law. You need freedom and law, freedom and responsibility. When those things are synthesized, I think we can look forward to a much better society. Jake Novak, you made your dad proud. I'll make sure I talk to him about that.
Yeah, Jake, thank you for being on the program. It was a great conversation. And thank you, our listeners, for tuning in to another episode of the dynamic duo, the Rev
and the Rabbi.
God bless.
Best thing that's ever happened to you financially. Go.
Easy. Sold my car on Carvana. Amazing offer.
Really? I hit 200 on the scratcher.
Did the scratcher come to your house and hand you a check?
No.
How many scratchers did you hit to get that? I hit a button on Carvana.com once.
Okay, that's fair.
It's like the lottery, except you always win.
Not like the lottery at all, actually.
Exactly. Inexplicably good. Offers worth bragging about. Sell your car today on Carvana. Pickup fees may apply.
Starting a business can seem like a daunting task, unless you have a partner like Shopify. They have the tools you need to start and grow your business. From designing a website to marketing to selling and beyond, Shopify can help with everything you need. There's a reason millions of companies like Mattel, Heinz, and Allbirds continue to trust and use them. With Shopify on your side, turn your big business idea into... Sign up for your $1 per month trial at shopify.com/special offer.